So, you finally think you're ready to solo travel the world. And then you realize, wait, you're traveling solo. So, how will you make friends? Here are some ideas. Welcome to the How to Travel Full-Time podcast. I'm your host, Heather Markel. If you're dreaming of full-time travel or moving abroad, but stuck at the emotional, financial, and logistical challenges, this podcast is for you. I'll help you trade overwhelm for information that gets you from down and stuck to up and going. You can dream about the travel lifestyle, or you can live the travel lifestyle. If you're ready to live it, then let's jump in together. In this episode, I'm going to share tips and ideas to make friends and avoid being lonely while you travel full-time. Whether you stay somewhere for a week, a month, a year, these ideas will help you make friends, which is something that will come in very handy to keep you from being lonely, which is a topic I covered on a prior episode of this podcast. Now, this episode comes with a free checklist, and you can get your copy at heatherbegins.com/make friends. All right, my favorite way of making friends when I travel is to use the same coffee shop, cafe, restaurant, like find something local to the place that you're staying and go there every day. And it might take you a couple days to figure this out because, it has to have the right vibe. You have to feel good there. The staff has to be nice, all that. So I just find that baristas and waiters are often a great source of information on local things to see and do. They can be friends, and they kind of there's this thing that happens when you go somewhere repeatedly where people know you and you walk in and they say hello, and it makes you have this level of comfort with a place and you don't feel so much like a traveler anymore. And when I was in Costa Rica, where I started my full-time travels, I was in the city of La Fortuna, and there was this great coffee shop. Now, if I haven't mentioned before, and I may actually not have mentioned before, I love cows. That stems from my living with a host family as a teenager in France, being a city kid, and it's a whole long story, but my stay with this French host family is what led to my absolute love of cows. So here I am in La Fortuna, and there is a coffee shop called La Vaca Purpura, which in Spanish means the purple cow. So obviously I had to go. Literally, it was the name that totally attracted me. Well, I have a coffee, and I meet Karen, the owner, and I end up going there over several days, and every day she has a different kind of coffee. At this point, I had never even heard of some of the ways she's preparing coffee. And we get chatting, and it turns out she, like me, is a world traveler. She had taken some time off and found her love of coffee. And so she's expressing this love at her coffee shop, and we actually became friends, and she invited me one evening to have dinner with her husband, so I went to this local restaurant I would never have found on my own. And that's just one example of how you can make friends with someone local. And it's nice to make local friends because they can introduce you to so many places and even people that you might not meet otherwise. And if you're staying somewhere for a month at a time, for example, this is such a great resource. Now, the second thing that I would do is focus on smiling and making eye contact, and even initiate speaking to other people. So compliments are a great way to get started in many places, but not necessarily everywhere. So if you're kind of like, what do I talk to strangers about? You might be like, oh, and it has to be genuine, but I love your shoes. I love your necklace, whatever it is. And I will say, of course, be mindful of culture to culture, right? In some places, maybe eye contact is not so good, or it means something else. So, inform yourself here, but generally speaking, a smile just bridges a lot of communication fear, right? So if you can make that initial smile and approach someone, it's a great way to start a conversation. And it's, of course, the conversation that can lead to the friendship. And I remember when I was in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, I was in this really small store and I saw this cute dress and I was trying the dress on, and in walks this other woman, and she's trying on dresses, and the shop owner somehow gets the two of us chatting, and so she and I go out to dinner, and we just really enjoy each other's company and basically hung out for most of the week that we were there, which was really fun. And, friendships, like, we did stay in touch for a little while, but, sometimes friendships are just kind of while you're there, and sometimes they last longer. So it's great to have either way, that companionship for while you're in a place together, and sometimes it can be even longer. So when I was marooned in New Zealand during the pandemic, I went out to dinner with a friend, and while we were there, I noticed there's this large table of women, and they're laughing a lot, and I'm hearing all these different accents. So, of course, me being me, I just walk over to their table and I ask what they're celebrating. Well, they tell me that they're actually all part of a Latin dance group, and they meet weekly and just down the road from where I was staying. So, of course, I signed up, and that group became this wonderful source of international women and friends, and made my time in New Zealand really special. And so special shout out to Luz and the girls at Latin Fit Kerikeri. So if you're ever in Kerikeri in the north of New Zealand, I highly recommend you take a class with them. Now, interestingly, on a side note here regarding the smile, the eye contact, the approaching people, I have learned that this tip is a little harder if you're a solo male traveler, because women will often presume that you're trying to pick them up. So it could be easier for you to do this like in a hostel environment rather than, say, just out on the street or in a restaurant, etc. So if you're having that trouble meeting, using this skill, if you're a solo male traveler, definitely try to go somewhere where it's sort of more commonplace to just chat people up, and not, of course, if you're not trying to have a date with them, right, and you just want to get to know people, that can be a more comfortable environment for you. So another idea is take a group tour. Do make sure it is a group tour. And because obviously if you just go on a solo tour, you're not meeting anyone else. However, if you are solo and you go on a group tour, you need to be careful that sometimes they want to charge you double. So it's just something around the world that's commonplace, that they want, a minimum of 2 people. And even if they have like 6 other people, they may only take you if you pay double, which really sucks, and I wouldn't do it. So do your research on that. And then, what's really nice about the tour is that you're out with other people. So it's a more easy conversation to speak with people. And your tour guide is probably a local or someone that has lived locally for a long time, and they may be able to make great suggestions to you of other places you can go to meet people. Now, I took a tour when I was in Thailand and ended up meeting this wonderful woman who ended up coming to, it was my birthday a couple days later, and she was so kind to come with me to this nice restaurant and celebrate my birthday with me. And it turned out her birthday was 2 weeks before, so it was sort of like this great birthday celebration together. And we stayed in touch for several years and ended up meeting up again in Santiago, Chile. So there's an example of a really nice way to you make a friend and then you stay in touch and later on meet up down the road in some other country. We also became each other's check-in buddies for several months. Now, I had mentioned in a prior episode about solo traveler safety. It's a really great tip to have someone that you're constantly letting them know where you're supposed to be and checking in and letting them know that you're safely arrived. So this is just so invaluable, and meeting fellow travelers on the road like you are ideal people to do this with. So another idea here is that you can take a class, right? So we've got the tour where you're out, visiting sites, but a class could be a workshop, and it could be something that meets for a few hours, an afternoon, or it could be something that meets every week. And it could be a cooking class, it could be a craft class, something that you're interested in. And what's nice about this for making friends is you're in a place with people who share an interest. So there's a really easy baseline to get a conversation started with people. So when I was in Argentina for the first time, I took this yerba mate class. I was so obsessed with it. I wanted to learn the history, the tradition, the proper way to make it. And I found this fantastic class, and I found it through a youth hostel and met these wonderful people in the class. And this is 2019. And I am still in touch with one of the gentlemen who is from Chile. And in fact, I went back to Argentina in 2024 and I touched base with him and to see if he was going to be in Argentina, and he was not, but it was great to just kind of rekindle that connection and know that it's there should I go back to Chile. So very nice. Another thing you can do is look for community boards. Community boards are a great source of classes or gatherings or getting involved in your community somehow, which especially if you're going to be somewhere, even if just for a few weeks, it's a really nice way to feel like you're either giving back to the community or getting more involved in the community. And you may even find some volunteer activities that you can participate in, all of which are wonderful ways to be in the company of great people and make new friends. And the places you can look for these community bulletin boards are most commonly at a supermarket, in a local church. Sometimes even a cafe will have a bulletin board. So just keep your eyes open. I find if you are looking for it, you kind of find them, and they may be in unexpected places, but they're there, and it's a great way to find out about gatherings of people that you can join. Something else that you can do, I've heard of other people that do this, but I haven't used it for this purpose, but dating apps. Some people actually use all the dating apps you may be familiar with in whatever country you're from. When you solo travel the world, you can actually use them there to meet other people. Now, I suggest you use them with caution. Again, the same rules as I mentioned for female solo traveler safety in my prior episode. You want to know kind of the rules for dating, and probably you want to meet up if you're meeting up with a guy, you probably want to make sure you meet up maybe during the day. I'd also be very candid that you are looking for friends, not relationships. And but it could be an easy way for you to just meet up with people locally. Now, a way that might feel a little bit safer is the next idea is Facebook groups. I know you may not be a fan of Facebook, and we heard about a change that's being made recently to the fact checking, so that might further influence your opinion of Facebook. However, despite its many flaws, it is a great place to meet fellow travelers. Now, meetup.com is another resource, but I don't think they're in every place in the world, whereas Facebook typically has some sort of group specific to every destination you can think of. There's probably a Facebook group or an expats in blank country, that kind of thing, that you can join. And there are other groups like the one I run, which is called Full-Time Travelers and Nomads. And the purpose of these groups is for full-time travelers to meet each other, to post that they're in whatever place and they'd like to meet up with other travelers in that place. So it's, despite, as I said, despite some of the downsides, using these Facebook groups is such a great resource to tap into other people that are traveling there, even locals, and again, community activities. All of those things are in these Facebook groups, so highly recommend that. One thing that's really important as you travel the world and you are looking to make those friends is you got to be open to having friends that are different ages. I think when we're older, it's very easy to presume that we can only make friends with people our age. And, younger people couldn't possibly have anything in common with us. And perhaps younger people also don't think they could make friends with older ones, right? So there might be some ingrained belief systems that you need to look at. But I'll tell you what, some of the greatest people that I have met in my travels have been like 10 or 20 years younger than me. I've even met people probably 20 or 30 years older than me, and they're all great. So if you want to make friends while you travel, try releasing any expectation you have of their age or the assumption that, I can't possibly find someone like-minded when they're so much younger, right? Or they're so much older, because that's not true. There are young people who are amazingly mature for their age. And there are older people who are amazingly young at heart. The important thing here is to have friends and focus on, if you enjoy your time with the person, their age doesn't matter. A final tip for this episode is to ask your friends or family for contacts. I think this one is often overlooked. You might kind of focus on the fact that you're a traveler, you're out there, and you kind of are like have these in the moment resources. But you know what? Your own friends and family members might have their own friends in places you're going. So one great way as you're trying to stay in touch with loved ones back home is to be like, hey, I'm going to Japan. I'm going to be in Tokyo. Do you happen to know anyone in Tokyo? It'd be fun to meet up with somebody at my first week, right? And maybe the person, your friend directly doesn't know someone, but their friend does, and they can, hook you up, right? So if that happens, ask for an introduction and reach out to that person, because this could be a really nice meeting to have the first week you arrive. It's great to meet someone and know that, someone familiar is in the same country. Someone, maybe if you have a question or need some help, you're the first call that you can make. And they might also be able to help you figure out where else to go to meet more people. So I hope those ideas were helpful. Those are just some of many ways that you can make friends while you travel. And remember to download your checklist at heatherbegins.com/make friends. I'll drop the link in the show notes, and I'll talk to you next week. Thanks so much for listening to the How to Travel Full-Time podcast. If you loved it, please leave a review and let us know. Make sure to subscribe to get the latest episodes. Check out the show notes for important resources related to this episode, and come visit us at travellifestylecoach.com to learn more great information. If you're ready to get started with the lifestyle, go to moneyfortravelbootcamp.com, where you can learn all the strategies to afford this amazing lifestyle. Talk to you next week.